No, nothing now. Dr. Anju, you can start.
Thank you, Nada. Good afternoon, good evening, namaskar, bonsoir, and hola to all the learners from across the globe today. Welcome to yet another session of learning with me, Dr. Anju Sabharwal, and I'm sure that yesterday was indeed a great learning opportunity for all of us. But before I begin, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and appreciate the very platform for today's knowledge sharing session, the International Internship University. International Internship University is a leading virtual education system and global brand confederation, which is the most valuable and trusted worldwide and well-reputed in innovative programs. Globally, it is a trusted name for training programs and is committed to providing better education opportunities to all the young learners of the globe. IIU is metamorphosing the conventional learning systems by cutting down the additional costs and providing access to more than 1,000+ courses and internships to their e-learners across the globe, with the help of its 1,000+ global educators. In a short span of time, IIU has spread its wings in 195 countries and 6 continents under the strong and able leadership of its visionary founder, Mr. Piyush Pandit Sir. I, Dr. Anju Sabharwal, am thankful to Team IIU and the founder, Mr. Piyush Pandit Sir, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to conduct these learning sessions for learners across the globe. Thank you so much, sir. Well, the flow of the session is again defining a language, skills in a language, receptive and productive skills, and strategies to improve the reading skills. So from yesterday, we had looked at the listening and speaking skills. So today I'm going to diversify into reading skills of a language. So if I have to define what a language is, and looking at the Oxford Dictionary, just to recap, language may be defined as the principal method of human communication consisting of words used in a structured and conventional way and conveyed by speech, writing, or gesture, as well as a system of communication used by a particular country or community. So in fact, language is the way that we humans try to convey meaning, try to convey our thoughts, our opinions. It can happen through words, it could happen through writing, it could happen through spoken words, it could happen through gestures. And language, as always, has a structure to it and is a more conventional way of doing it. Also, it represents a system of communication used by a particular country. For example, we have countries across the globe like Mexico, Italy, Spain, India, China, Japan. So we all have different forms of communication in our own languages. And even within communities, there is a slight variation of how a language is used. For example, French has a spoken version as well. It's called Creole. Now, the Creole used up in France is slightly different from maybe another Francophone country down maybe in southern part of Africa, like Seychelles. So a language essentially is a medium to convey thoughts and opinions. Broadly, it becomes a medium of expression to make communication more simpler. It becomes a vehicle to, again, establish collaboration between individuals, between countries, between organizations. Of course, again, it's a way of transforming information in a professional scenario from the boss to the employee, or maybe from the team leader to his team. And it is not just limited to written expression only. But like I said, we are going to look at the more conventional form of language. So we will use the traditional meaning of language to convey ideas through the 4 skills of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And yesterday we spent some time looking at how we could improve listening and speaking skills. Now, essentially, reading also becomes a very important skill for any language, because until we read new thoughts and we understand new concepts, we will be unable to express our thoughts. That is why reading becomes a very vital part of any language. Just a recap again from yesterday about receptive skills and productive skills. Like I said, reading and listening become our receptive skills, meaning thereby that these are the skills that where we do not actively engage in conveying our thoughts, because when we're reading someone else's thoughts, opinions, feelings, perspectives, which have been put down on paper. And similarly, as a listener, we are tuning into what the other person is saying so that we can appropriately continue the conversation or the dialogue. That is why it becomes a receptive skill. That means that it is at the receiving end. Like, for example, if you get a telephone call, if you are not making the call, then you are the receiver. For that matter, when you get a handwritten letter from anyone, so you become the receiver of the letter. It's been sent by someone else, right? Moving on, we will now look at productive skills. Again, productive skills being those where we are able to analyze, assess, assimilate whatever we have picked up either through a text that we have read or through a conversation that we have, and reproduce the information carried therein in the form of writing, if the need be, or in the form of a reply or a part of the conversation in speaking. So that's why it becomes a productive skill. That means that we are able to produce either another form of written text to convey our meaning and thoughts in reply, maybe to an email, to a letter, or maybe it's just triggered our thought processes. So after reading a short story, I've been, my thoughts have been triggered, and I have come up with another anecdote or another short story of my own to express my emotions. Likewise, speaking, after listening to what the other person has to say, we've been able to state our views and opinion, keeping in mind what was asked or what was stated by the other person. Okay, so today we are going to essentially look at reading as a skill and how can we work upon reading to make it better. Some of us may be well, adept with the skills that I share. But again, like I said, revision always helps. It just helps us reprogram ourselves and become better at the skills that we are already good at, right? Before even I tell you why we need to read, I would just like to say that, I would just like to give you an example of how reading affects our being. I know I'm going to take an example from a Hindi movie. I will try and explain to you the entire scene. It's a movie where we have the character being able to recall information about a character who is no longer alive. Okay, and in this case, the character is Mahatma Gandhi. So in the movie, they show that the main actor is able to recall everything about Mahatma Gandhi, or he sees Mahatma Gandhi speak to him when he asks a particular question. Now, and then they move on to a part where he's unable to recall. Now, when that is taken forward, when you look at it, it is essentially telling us that whatever information we read, it gets stored in our subconscious mind. So the actor had read certain things about Mahatma Gandhi. So he thought that he could see Mahatma Gandhi live when he discussed those things or he asked those questions. But when there were certain things that which he did not know, Mahatma Gandhi did not appear in front of him. So it's just telling us that reading is very essential for us to be able to bring new thoughts and bring new ideas in our own conversations, in our own discussions, in our own, day activities. We can only bring new thoughts, or we can only write about new things if we read about new things. Okay. So let's just look at why do we need to read. Reading is essentially how we keep ourselves updated with current events and progresses in this research in our field. Okay. Secondly, mastery of reading skills also allows us to, fully engage with what we are reading, whether we're reading a report, a year-end report of the company as the manager, to understand how the strategies work and what is the overall financial condition of the company, or else we're just reading for pleasure. So if we hone our reading skills, we are able to fully understand what is being said in those reports or in that novel that I pick up to read, and draw more meaning from it. Now also, like I said before, good reading skills help us to improve our written skills as well, because we are able to synthesize whatever we have read and translate it into our own words, right? So let's just look at reading skills. So what do we usually read as educators, as professionals from different fields across companies, across industries? So we could be reading a wide range of things, which include maybe if I'm an educator, read up stuff on maybe how to teach writing to my class, or maybe some lecture slides that I need to prepare for my own individual class, or maybe some books or journal articles, or maybe something online that I've been able to read. As a company manager, I could be looking at research report. I could be looking at, case studies, some strategic plans to understand and develop my own synthesis and analysis of information. Why do we need? Again, it's to address people, to conduct maybe research for a presentation, or maybe we have to, we are into marketing and I need to pitch my product to a client. So for that, I need to read up enough so that I'm able to justify any questions that come across. So what kind of reading abilities do I need? Essentially, beyond just simply understanding what the words are saying when we are reading a text, we need to be able to evaluate or critique them to see whether actually it makes sense, whether it does convey the exact essence of what is given in the information, compare them, contrast them, and of course, use the information that you get from such, pieces of literature to apply to, like I said, preparing a marketing pitch, or maybe preparing a presentation, or maybe you are you're a keynote speaker at a conference, so you need to address people with certain issues, right? So that is why we need these kind of reading abilities to be able to process, analyze the information that we read and continue forth, right? So moving onwards, let us look at how we can look at reading skills and how can we enhance them. Now, essentially, whatever I have spoken about, being actively engaged and extracting meaning from whatever we read, can be simplified into SQ3R. Now, SQ3R essentially stands for the 5 steps that are involved when we read something. So S meaning skim or survey, that means look through text very quickly to get an overall impression. You can also do this through, if you pick up a book, for example, if you pick up something for light reading, usually at the back of the book, on the book cover, you have a little write-up about what is the book containing. So that is a way you could, quickly assess whether this is something of your own interest. So that's why I'm saying skim. Skim is a very quick reading skill where we quickly look at a very short information about a particular book and understand whether we would really like to take it up as a reading thing. Next is question. For example, if we are reading a particular, for a particular purpose, do we question ourselves as to how it helps? We can, question whether, who, what, where, when, how. If I'm dissecting a reading text for the help of my students, I could employ this technique when I am reading. Of course, once I've identified that, yes, this is what I want to read, or this is a piece of text that I would like to take forward, we can read the text in a very focused manner because we've already analyzed whether this is what will interest us. Or we've already analyzed that this text, if I'm working with students, will help my students, and read it in a very quick way, or in a fairly quick, manner, right? Just a second. Yeah. Next, you could also try to recollect. Okay, so remember or recollect or recite. Okay, so it essentially stands for the same thing, meaning that, just handling your memory and seeing if you can recollect what you've just read. Of course, if we just read something once, we may not be able to retain so much of information because in the first time we usually are just reading for the greater picture. But yes, definitely that is one technique that we do employ when we are reading a piece of literature. Review means, again, either to reread, that means to read the text in more detail, taking notes if we need to, if we are supposed to prepare a presentation or give a talk to maybe young adults about discipline or, time management or something of the like. We could make certain notes that we would like to share certain key points from a text that we've read, which we would like the youngsters to understand and take away from that session. So in this, we are also trying to reuse our own words. We are trying to say what we have read in our own words so that it becomes easier for the audience who is our listener, right? So moving on. Just a second. Yeah. So I've just put together certain strategies which will help us to improve our reading skills further. So the first one that I'm going to talk about, and I've spoken a little bit in my earlier explanations, is preview. That means to select material that is at a right level. Now, all of us may not be at the same level of reading. We all have different skills, and it is but natural. For example, for me also, English is a second language. So maybe in certain domains, I may not be so good at reading a particular text because it has information which is beyond my comprehension level. Right? So it is very important, or maybe the text that I want to use with my students, I need to see whether it is something which can be simplified and be able to understand. So we need to preview whatever material we read to understand whether we really want to read this and engage ourselves in the reading. Because if it's too difficult, it becomes difficult for us to remember and understand. And if it becomes too easy, then we are quickly disconnected, because I think as a reader, we need to maintain our connect to be able to understand the flow of where things are going, especially when we are reading for pleasure. Also, we should, take some time to understand how the entire text flows, so that it can give us a basic understanding of the overall structure, what is the content, and making it simpler for us, and trigger us or engage us enough when we do read it. Okay. Moving on, of course, we should, as always, take key points down, ask questions about content, because this will help us understand the context, and we can, become more successful at reading. So it is always essential that when we pick up a text for reading, we give it a thorough thought, that is it actually engaging me? Do I find it interesting enough? And will I be able to do justice to my own ability as a reader? Okay, so a preview of anything, and how can we do it? Like I said earlier, there are usually small write-ups at the end of a book, or you have blurbs at the beginning, sharing something about what the book is, which helps us understand whether we want to go ahead with the reading or not. I'm sorry. Just give me a second, please. Just a moment. I'm just going to stop share and start share again. I think there's some issue with my slide. Just give me a moment, please. Yeah. Next is reading for pleasure. That is one thing that we should definitely engage, because I feel, yes, work is very important for all of us, and we do a lot of reading when we are engaged in our professional lives. But reading for pleasure allows us to be a little more at ease, because we are not actually, running within a time limit, or we're not, bound by time constraints. So when we read for pleasure, we kind of spend a little bit more in engaging with the text. We're able to, because we pace it a little bit more easier. Usually when we are working or professionally, you have to go through maybe reports, or you have to go through certain texts, and be ready with whatever needs to be done within a given time frame. But when we are reading for pleasure, we're doing it at our own leisure time. And it is essential because it allows us to be more relaxed, and we engage more fruitfully with text, and it helps us to improve our vocabulary. It helps us to improve our writing skills, and we, this is a very engaging activity, because it also relaxes the mind. You could, like, if you have kids at home, or maybe as a family, I know that when my kids were younger, we used to sit with the same, extract. I would take printouts of maybe a short story, and we would, as a family, sit together and read bits of it, so that, the kids could get onus of the fact that they are also reading along, and we could have a discussion. Usually in class also, maybe you've done literature circles where you get students to read something together, and engage in reading, where everybody is reading the same text, and everybody is allowed to give their opinion or their perspectives on a particular piece of reading. Of course, you can join a book club. Of course, libraries tend to be open, and you can engage in, book clubs even in your community. Um, and of course, with technology coming to the forefront after COVID, we have, digital mediums through which we could read audiobooks. You could listen to it. Although I would still, suggest that picking up a book in hand gives you so much more pleasure, because again, you're on a screen. If you're reading, I mean, digitally, or you're listening, you're not engaging, because maybe while you're listening, you're going through something else as well. Many of us do that at times, although a bad practice. But I've seen some of my friends, listening to something, and on the other, they're just, going through some other literature that they want to get over with. So by taking some time, I feel engaging in reading almost every day for pleasure will definitely augment your reading skills and give you more impetus in being able to develop your reading skills. Moving on, again, rereading. Okay, like I said, we all are at different levels of reading, of understanding, and being able to retain information. So maybe for some of us, reading comes naturally because we are, fine-tuned to being inclined towards literature. Because they say one part of your brain is more creative and the one is analytical. So I think it is the right part which is analytical and the left which is creative. So people who are left brain centered, they usually take up reading, they take up learning skills, they take up learning languages quickly and easily, whereas people who are more analytical, they tend to be, little, I'm not saying it's specifically true for everybody, but yes, there has been, variations where people tend to shy away from reading a book, okay, because it takes time and they probably don't want to spend that time reading a book. But this rereading helps in different active, learning skills like awareness, like questioning. It can also help us process information more deeply and, make connections, like, especially as educators, when we're teaching our kids how to read, we usually tell them that, you should read the passage first just to understand what the passage is about, and then look for details that are needed to answer the questions that are portrayed, or maybe come up with notes which are needed to be presented to the class. So some things we can process easily, some things we need to reread, look for final details, and pick up connections which we have not been able to make the first time round. And please understand that every time you read a piece of literature, be it a book, be it a report, be it any case study, you will always have a different perspective. Now, why is that? Because essentially you have already had a grounding about what the text is. So you're able to work from there to understand the text better. So it allows us to focus on concepts and details that we have, missed the first time round, and add more value to our understanding of a text. That is why rereading becomes an essential skill to improve our reading abilities. Moving on, pacing. Now, pacing essentially comes from the word pace. That means, how do we do our reading? How do we divide, or what are the strategies that we use to pace our reading? Now, sometimes what happens that because we want to appear fluent readers, right? We try to read at a faster speed. Like, even if we have to read something from a piece of paper which we've written down, at times to appear fluent, or maybe because we are, how can I put it, become conscious of the fact that we are, presenting in front of people, we kind of try to speed it up. And in that, it becomes a little bit difficult and uninteresting. And so our comprehension suffers. So we can read it at our own pace. When we're reading, we don't necessarily need to read within a time frame. Of course, yes, if you have a presentation to make, you might have to essentially go through a variety of information to take ideas and put it together. But we can still process everything that we read and understand it. Now, by pacing it or making it at a slower pace, we become more engaged and less distracted. We don't lose our sensibility or our place in where we are with a particular piece of reading. Okay, it is also essential for us to pace it so that we can keep it in memory for longer. If we read things quickly, we tend to miss out and we tend to forget. But if we slow down the pace and give ourselves that time and the room, we are able to comprehend and remember what we have read. So next time, instead of trying to appear, because reading is something that we do personally, we're not reading out loud, we're reading it for ourselves. So we can take our own times, we can take our own pace, and it does pay a lot of dividends, that we suddenly realize that, oh, it was because I was trying to read it at a quicker pace, or I was trying to speed up my reading. I couldn't really understand, but now that I've just read it at my own pace, I'm able to extract more information and understand the content more fully and better, right? Of course, chunking, I had talked about chunking as in sentence. Similarly, you can chunk things up, which means you break down your reading into bits and pieces and then read each piece separately. Essentially, it means that and it is usually a process that we do in our second or third reading of a text or a piece of information that we're trying to read, or even when we're trying to read for pleasure, we try to, break it down into, okay, this part is describing the scenario, the setting of the scene. This is describing the characters. This is describing the action that is happening, and so on. So chunking is it's a very simple process where we take the entire reading text, whatever we may be reading, and dividing it into things which we can slowly understand at a later date. So we quickly identify that this entire piece of information relates to a certain thing. It could be a chronological report. So, this happened at the first, like for in a newspaper report, we usually start with what happened. So we are able to break it into those chunks and assimilate what we've read and memorize it. So we can focus and understand on what essentially the text is trying to say. In fact, chunking is also similar to paragraphing, right? So why do we do that in writing? Because we want to identify, we want to put all thoughts on a particular idea together. Right? And chunking helps us, or breaking it into bits allows the readers to keep things in memory as per the need. For example, if we are reading for pleasure and I'm looking at how the plot develops, so I'm going to look at where is the scene set, who are the characters. Now, if I chunk it that way, it becomes easier for me to understand what is happening and gradually break it down into smaller pieces for better understanding and comprehension. For example, if we're reading a simple thing as a paragraph, we can, read every single sentence. And then within, like yesterday, I told you that, there are some certain words which can be chunked together to appear as a one word. We can identify groups of words and phrases which will help us to better remember and better understand what we are trying to learn, right? Okay, so moving on, another technique which helps us greatly in making our reading more meaningful and helps us improve is asking questions about any text. It could be a report, it could be a marketing report. So we would be asking questions as to, okay, what part of information do I actually need? Why do I need this information? Right? By actively questioning about the text, we can understand and we are able to, actively engage with the material. If we are not able, let's say my senior has given me a case study about a project and he wants me to develop a similar project strand. Whatever I do not understand, I'm sure my manager would be ready to answer those questions and come forth. Or even if he was not able to, I would be able to reread that section of the report and understand more clearly because I have a question and I'm looking for that particular question. Of course, questioning also helps us to identify the gaps in our understanding. Okay, I read something and this is a question that came to my mind. Okay, is this correct? Do I think I can take it further? Let me just try and find out. So we get a focus to try and find solutions for things we were not able to understand in our first go. For example, especially I believe when we are reading for pleasure, and in a group, especially, questioning is a very interesting way to generate a discussion on a particular thing, to get different thought processes of the people involved in reading. Like I gave you the example of doing this with my kids, not too often, but yes, maybe every 15 days I would, pick up something that I would like my children to read along with me and get photocopies. So it allowed me also to get a new perspective, because maybe I'm looking at it from a bird's eye view, that from the top, because I have a greater understanding of the text, and they could be looking at a bottoms up way and looking at the minute things, because their understanding is limited to that aspect only. So it opened up a lot of things for discussion. It opened up a lot of points for interaction and understanding the text and getting new perspectives to a particular text, right? Of course, it also helps our comprehension, and it helps us take an active role in reading and understanding the text that we are reading, especially so when we are reading for pleasure. So I would like to encourage everybody to make it a habit, not just to, I know we all read every day related to our work areas, either it's things that we want to bring for our kids, or it's better to understand what I'm supposed to teach. But I think essentially every day we need to set some time around, whether we're traveling in the bus or something, where we pick up things just to relax, just to read, because reading helps us to travel through different, we can travel through different domains or different what do I say, realms of life. You could travel through different portals in life. You could be in outer space if you pick up a book pertaining to maybe outer space, or you could be one of my favorite books is Journey to the Center of Earth. I just love reading that because it just transports me and in my imagination to what would exactly happen at the center of Earth and how vividly it has been described. Or for that matter, by the same author, Leagues Under the Sea, where, he talks about life under the sea. Jules Verne is the author that I'm talking about. So I feel that we need to essentially set time every day, whether it is 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm not saying set 20 minutes or half an hour or an hour, because I know we all have such time-bound lives, and there are a lot of things that we pack into a single day as professionals, as educators, as a working mother, as a stay-at-home mom, or as a child, right? But I essentially believe that we should try and engage in, reading off the record, if I may say. Also, the environment in which we sit and read makes it very, very important. And it also helps with our abilities. I have tried and tested this myself. I am a night person. So if you ask me to be sitting with talented individuals in an organization at maybe a lunch table and go through some pieces of literature, I would definitely not understand, because my thoughts would, or my engagement would be with the conversations that were happening around. It's maybe that's a disability I have, but I accept it, right? So it depends on what kind of an environment that you are in when you are reading, so that you can read actively and assimilate the information. Of course, prior knowledge about a particular thing always helps. Like yesterday, we looked at how when we were engaging in a conversation, because of our prior knowledge, we were able to relate, and we were able to give responses which were to the point and clear, right? Of course, in a physical environment, also how somebody reads, right, also depends on how well they comprehend the text. Perfecting your surroundings, that means it doesn't necessarily mean that telling everyone to be quiet because you want to read, but kind of switching off from the outside and turning towards focusing on your task makes it a more enjoyable and more relatable experience. For example, I always enjoy going to bookstores, especially, and sitting in the chairs there and just getting lost in a book, which I may not pick up eventually, but just enjoying the pleasure of being in a different world. Of course, when we are reading, it is always essential that it is well lit. When I say the environment, it doesn't mean that we have to make it so cozy that it becomes dark and dull. But yes, it needs to be well lit so that we can read easily and we can, understand what we're reading. If it is dim, I have to actively engage with the text, get into the text to be able to understand, and it is going to slowly disengage me in some time, because it will be too much effort on my part. Of course, reading in a comfortable position, maybe if you're reading for pleasure, you would like to sit in a couch or maybe in a swing. I usually do that. I sit on a couch, have my pillow, and probably have a small blanket over my feet, and pick up the book that I want to read and read at leisure. Usually when I'm alone at home and I want to just, relax. Yes, you're hearing me right. Reading does help us to rejuvenate and relax. I know some of us will say, oh my God, how can she say that? How can reading relax us? But yes, friends, if you are reading a novel, or if you're picking up something interesting that you would like to read, it does relax you, because it's something that you love. It's something that you enjoy. Like even if, you're preparing for a session that you want to have with your students tomorrow, but it's on a topic that you really enjoy, you will feel so relaxed and motivated and energetic to explore the text, and your mind will be so engaged in finding different ways you could, help students relate to a text. And as a reader, you yourself would engage with the text. So of course, it seems a little out of the box to say that reading relaxes oneself, but yes, please attempt reading something for some time. Small things, not very big things, not very difficult things, or not for very long times. It's up to us how much we want to read in a day. And why I'm specifically saying that, because there are a lot of things that are going on in our minds, in spite of all the good things that happen, because our minds are constantly, taking things in. There are a lot of things which motivate us, demotivate us, and some of them stay in our minds and they keep playing tricks with the mind. So reading essentially allows you to leave everything aside and get immersed in whatever you want to pick up and read. So reading for pleasure is a must for everybody if you want to improve your reading skills. um, uh, of course, we may choose to disagree, and I think it's always healthy to do so, but yes, I feel that apart from reading our own work related material, it is very essential. We don't need to start off with maybe a classic like Gone with the Wind, which is a 1,000-page novel. If you don't like reading, pick up something shorter, pick up maybe an article in the newspaper. I'm not saying that it has to be a book. It could be an editorial that you see in a magazine, or it could be an editorial that comes up you like reading every weekend because it opens up your mind to different thought processes. Or it could just be a simple, article on maybe a sports thing. Like I love cricket. So my first thing that I do when I come home is pick up the newspaper and read up everything there is on maybe a cricket match that is happening. Like currently the World Test Cricket tournament is going on. So I would definitely want to know where the teams are, right? So it all depends on our own likings. But again, I would like all of us to engage in reading for pleasure every single day, and encourage each and every person that you meet to do so, because it's only through reading that you can, in fact, express yourselves better. And exposing yourself, like yesterday I said, exposure to different genres is very, very important. So like I talked about sitcom, I talked about documentaries, I talked about drama thrillers that you could watch or you could listen to. I would suggest that even when we're reading, sometimes it is always beneficial to take up something that you don't really have a fancy. Yes, it might be challenging initially, but you will engage in improving your vocabulary, so that when you are in a conversation and when people talk about, let's say, financial literacy, I'm able to relate to it, and it's not like, oh my God, what are they talking about, and I felt left out. Okay, so reading allows us to engage, communicate with each other, because we're able to pick up vocabulary and build up conversations on different things in life, and not just stuck to a particular thing. So taking to the last segment of my presentation. So there are a lot of online reading websites. Now, I know you're going to say, oh, ma'am, but you're engaging us digitally. But trust me, post-COVID, I think we are more online than offline. And our phones have become, a great medium. So I thought it would be best to, just share a few websites where you could go online and you could, find books of your choice. And most of these websites do have free readings. Like Amazon Kindle, yes, has a subscription amount, which is very little. It allows you to browse through. There are, just like for any digital platform, like Zoom has a pro system also, and a basic platform. Likewise, Amazon also has a basic platform where you get certain amount of books which you could choose to read. There is another online platform, Feedbooks, which has a lot of books to do with different literature, with different domains. In fact, all these websites that I'm sharing with you have a lot of information a lot of different kind of genres which you can expose yourself to, and almost all of them have a free thing. So you could pick up 2-3 books from one place. Of course, another latest thing of today is audiobooks. Essentially, it is a written format which has been either made into an audiobook by an AI source. That means, you select a kind of voice, you select a character, and you can turn a written text into an audiobook. Okay. I have tried this with poetry that I usually write, and I've always given it up because I don't like the voice, or I don't like the speed, although there are things that you can work around with. So audiobooks are also a good way of reading. Actually, it is listening. But yes, those are things which keep us on the go. A quick tip, I've put it down there. If you are an Amazon Prime user, you can use your membership to read 3 books online called Prime Reading. Okay, so you can access plenty of latest and popular digital books. In fact, just yesterday, one of my friends exposed me to a reading platform which is free by the name of, I think, Reading FM. And they have, you get free around, the basic feature has around 10 books, 10 audio books that you could listen to, which are also available in, regional languages. Now, because that friend of mine is from India, this platform, Reading FM, gave me books in Hindi, or probably he'd chosen that option for himself. So when he shared it, it was an audiobook in Hindi talking about certain things. So a lot of things can be done. I will be back tomorrow with another session on writing skills. But before I go, I would like to thank the IIU team, and especially more so its able and motivated visionary leader, Mr. Piyush Pandit sir, for allowing me this opportunity to share my knowledge on this wonderful platform that we call International Internship University. So this is Dr. Anju Sabharwal signing off for tonight. And I will meet you again tomorrow. I hope I've been able to trigger you into reading, the ones who are shying away from reading, because I believe reading is very essential for us to be able to communicate thoughts on a variety of topics. Good night, take care, and stay healthy. Till tomorrow, same time at 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time, I will be there with you all with the session on writing skills. Good night, take care, and stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Please end the meeting.